Hare Krishna. Um, Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm speaking from the office, so so this is a little different, but it's the same Bhakti Shastri class. There is no need to be alarmed. Um, so we are going to do the Bhakti Shastri class um, for the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So if everybody can send on the WhatsApp group, if just say Haribol so that we can know if everybody joined or what is the status. Are they able to hear it clearly? Do we need to increase the volume? So on and so forth. So if those who have joined, just say Haribol on the WhatsApp group, that will be wonderful. And I'm going to start with the Mangalacharan prayers. Thank you again for joining. Oh, okay. Okay, Divya Mataji says Haribol. Thank you, Divya Mataji. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं त्वं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभयश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मत्समो नास्ति पापात्मा अपराधी च कश्चन परिहारेऽपि लज्जामे किं ब्रूये पुरुषोत्तम। भूमौ स्खलितपादानां भूमिरेवावलम्बनं त्वयि जातापराधानां त्वामेव शरणं प्रभो। गोविन्दवल्लभे राधे प्रार्थये त्वमहं सदा त्वदीयम् इति जानातु गोविन्दो मां त्वया सह। राधा राधितराधेश राधिका प्राणवल्लभा राधारमण वन्दे त्वं राधिका प्रेमचिता। Hare Krishna. So today we are going to discuss the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And if the Veda base, can you? Thank you. So in the text one, if you see the first two questions of the third chapter, essentially Arjuna is asking questions confused by words of Krishna. In the second chapter, the Lord gives the Buddhi Yoga process and the Sankhya Yoga process, and he gives or he glorifies that how one should control one's senses and perform duty with detachment to the fruits of action, Also, one has to perform sense control, and so many other topics are mentioned in the second chapter. At some places, Krishna says to Arjuna, you should fight, because he certainly says, oh Arjuna, you think you are not fighting because of your magnanimity, but the generals who have assembled here in the battlefield, they'll think Arjuna is just a coward. He has run away from this battlefield out of fear only, and thus your good name will be ruined. And at some other point of time, uh, Krishna mentions that how by performing or abstaining from activity that is not sense gratificatory of nature, then one is freed from reaction. So he's confused. So if you can see the first verse, focus is just on the text. Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna has very elaborately described the constitution of soul in the previous chapter with a view to delivering his intimate friend Arjuna from the ocean of material grief. Thank you. And the path of realization has been recommended Buddhi Yoga or Krishna consciousness. Sometimes Krishna consciousness is misunderstood to be inertia, and with such a misunderstanding, one often withdraws to a secluded place to become fully Krishna conscious by chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. But without being trained in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it is not advisable to chant the holy name of Krishna in a secluded place, where one may acquire cheap adoration from innocent public. Arjuna also thought of Krishna consciousness or Buddhi Yoga or intelligence in spiritual advancement of knowledge as something like retirement from active life and the practice of penance and austerity at a secluded place. In other words, he wanted to skillfully avoid the fighting by using Krishna consciousness as an excuse. But as a sincere student, he placed this matter before his master and questioned Krishna as to the best course of his action. In answer, Lord Krishna has elaborately explained Karma Yoga or working Krishna consciousness in this third chapter. So, and we'll go to the next verse and then we'll discuss the text to Sanskrit. Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohaya sivame tadekam vada nischitya yena shreyoham apniyam. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Purport. In the previous chapter, as a prelude to Bhagavad Gita, many different paths were explained, such as Sankhya Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, control of the senses by intelligence, work without fruitive desire, and position of neophyte. This was all presented unsystematically. A more organized outline of the path would be necessary for action and understanding. Arjuna therefore wanted to clear up these confusing matters so that common man could accept them without misinterpretation. Although Arjuna had no intention of confusing Arjuna by any jugglery of words, Arjuna could not follow the process of Krishna consciousness, either by inertia or by active service. In other words, by his questions, he is clearing path of Krishna consciousness for all students who seriously want to understand the mystery of Bhagavad Gita. So, Arjuna's dilemma was, should I fight or should I not fight? Because you said it is better that I cultivate Buddhi Yoga, but on the other hand, you are saying you should fight. Which is better for you? And this dilemma often has many people wondering, so should I do this or should I not do that? Should I go here or should I not go there? Should I accept this job or should I not accept that job? The idea is that to make a decision, it's not easy without having superior knowledge. And Arjuna also was confused. Should I fight or not fight? Because Krishna is being very equivocal with his words. As Srila Prabhupada writes, Krishna was not intended to be equivocal because he gave the entire summary of Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter. Um, Now Arjuna is wanting further clarification. And often people think that merely by reading Bhagavad Gita one renounces everything. In fact, the opposite is true. Arjuna wanted to renounce, but Krishna said, no, please, you should fight. And the third chapter, Krishna says that one has to fight uh, for even maintenance of one's body, one has to act. So the whole of third chapter is Karma Yoga, which is all about action. But please understand, action merely without any knowledge is dangerous, as we kind of discuss more and more in this chapter. And also, what is the position of human being and how do we subsist, so on and so forth. So I am very thankful that Vijay is here today in the audio in the office with me, trying to assist and help me. Thank you, Vijay, and help me go through this. So thank you. So we'll go to the third verse. You want to know what Krishna is saying here. Text 3, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Lokesmin Vivida Nishta Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize self. Some are inclined to understand by empirical philosophical speculation and others by devotional service. Purport. In the second chapter, verse 39, the Lord explained two kinds of procedures, namely Sankhya Yoga or Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga. In this verse, the Lord explains the same more clearly. Sankhya Yoga, or the analytical study of nature of spirit and matter, is the subject matter for persons who are inclined to speculate and understand things by experimental knowledge and philosophy. So most of the philosophers, they try to uh, find truth by eliminating or negating what is not truth. So from their perspective, the matter is something that is temporary and it is not quote unquote true. So which means eliminate matter. What else is there? So the process of philosophical speculation is more of an ascending process. You try to eliminate, and you come to the conclusion that God is actually formless. God is impersonal. God has no specific characteristics or activities. So that is the process of philosophical speculation. And eventually the philosophical speculation might lead one to the impersonal realization of God. But the Krishna says that's one path, Sankhya Yoga path. The other process is the path of Karma Yoga, which is the title of this chapter, which means that one performs activities for a higher purpose or for Krishna in specific, but then at this point Krishna is not clear. If you see that Krishna says in the second chapter, 61st verse, that please work for me, right? But that's to the extent of that. He doesn't give much details on how you work and so on and so forth. So, and then we'll just continue with that. The other class of men work in Krishna consciousness, as is explained in the 61st verse of the second chapter. The Lord has explained also in the 39th verse that by working by the principles of Buddhi Yoga or Krishna consciousness, one can be relieved from the bonds of action. And furthermore, there is no flaw in the process. The same principle is more clearly explained in the 61st verse, that this Buddhi Yoga is to depend entirely on the Supreme, or more specifically on Krishna. And in this way, all the senses can be brought under control very easily. Therefore, both the yogas are interdependent as religion and philosophy. Religion without philosophy is sentiment, or sometimes fanaticism, while philosophy without religion is mental speculation. The ultimate goal is Krishna, because the philosophers who are sincerely searching after the absolute truth, come in the end to Krishna consciousness. This is also stated in Bhagavad Gita. So the Lord says that there are two paths: the philosophical speculation and by work, or through working for a higher purpose. And we can go to the next verse to say which one is better. Or even furthermore, Krishna says, Na karmanam anarambhan naishkarmyam purushoshnate nacha sanyasanadeva siddhim samadhi gacchati. Not merely by abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So here in this particular verse, Krishna is actually giving a clue. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. So please note, in this material world, that every action one performs has a reaction. Whether it is a good work which performs good, which begets good results, or evil work which one gets evil results. So the goal here, or the thrust, is that how to become free from the reactions of work. And the intricacies of one's action in this material world is a subject matter that Krishna delves into much deeper context. Even assuming that the person is not having a spiritual goal, just forget all this. Prabhu, what are you talking? I don't need about all these spiritual things. I just want to be happy by just doing my thing. I just want to maintain my family, or whatever be the situation. Actually, Krishna says, even if you just want to live in this material world without worrying too much about spirituality or getting out of it, you still have certain obligations that one has to perform to be happy. And that's what Krishna is saying here. So, next verse, Prabhu. Text 5. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtyatya karmakrit karyate hyavasha karma sarvah prakritir jayar gunai. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, and not even for a moment. Because Krishna is saying here, oh Arjuna, you said that I don't want to fight this battle. And then earlier also you asked the question that, you sometimes say I should fight and sometimes you say I should not. And should I fight or should I not fight? And Krishna is saying, please understand that everybody is helplessly acting in this material world because they have attained certain modes of material nature. And in that mode, then you act. For example, a person who's much in the mode of passion, who's a businessman, he works very hard to earn money, and that's his nature. And if you abruptly ask them not to work, but still internally that subtle or swabhava, or one's self-nature, still remains, which is acquired from modes of material nature. And consequently, even if they are in forest, they are just thinking about how to make money even when they are in the forest, or anywhere else for that matter of fact. That's just their nature. And Krishna says, if you don't work, then you can't even, you just are, it's impossible not to work. So that is the situation here in this material world. And just if we can go down to the purport a little bit. So okay. So let's go to the next verse. The other thing that I would definitely ask the devotees is I want every devotee to have a plan to read Bhagavad Gita for 15 minutes a day. I realize that if there is no daily reading, then it becomes very, very cumbersome, tedious, painful, and in fact, Bhagavad Gita seems so much of hard work just before the exams. So if you read and relish Bhagavad Gita every day, even for 15 minutes, it's actually going to be helpful because these purports are so deep that we can spend a lot of time working or going through these purports. So, I and all the devotees must actually kind of at least send to me saying that yes, I have a plan. I don't know if you're actually doing it. If you are already reading Bhagavad Gita every single day for some time, then that's wonderful. But if you are not, then I request that the devotees say, okay, I'll read for 15 minutes a day. And it's easy to take out 15 minutes. For every individual person, they have their own times where they are free, they are focused. For a housewife, maybe it is just after the children go to school or everybody leaves home. For a person working at office, it could be, I don't know, in lunch break or somewhere that they can take 15 minutes time out and they can read Bhagavad Gita in a focused way. This is very important because not only it makes reading Bhagavad Gita relishable, but also it gets into a habit of reading Prabhupada's books every day. So that is a very nice aspect of one's sadhana. So I humbly request. This is mandatory, not optional. So at least for those who really have serious issues that they can't manage 15 minutes a day, then at least let me know. Then we can work on it. So Krishna here mentions also in the next verse that for those who think that we have seen a lot of these people, at least in India, that the so-called swamis and yogis, they practically do nothing all day long, and they seem to show some mystic powers, but then we have seen so many scandals regarding this fake godmen in India, and Krishna is certainly not very happy with those kinds of people, as he mentions in the next verse. So it says the fifth verse, which takes sixth verse, which says, Karmendriyani manasa samya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudatma mityachara sa uchyate. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a prudent. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that as long as one has taste internally for material objects, but externally if you are just trying to restrain your senses, while internally you hover on the sense objects, and then it is mentioned as drinking water drinking water while fasting. So some people in India have this vow of fasting even from water all day long, or when they go take bath in the river, then they just, when their head is below the water, they secretly gulp some water. So that is the kind of thing that it is mentioned here. It's better be honest with what we are, because ultimately we can cheat people, and we can get some name and we can get some fame. But Krishna is there in our heart. Krishna is watching everything. So it's better be open with Krishna, saying, this is my situation, please help me. And do our work to the best of our ability. And in that way, actually, Krishna is very pleased with one's sincere and honest endeavors, rather than trying to become something that you are not. Next question. Thank you. Any questions I got? All right. Audio is great. Thank you. Everybody is able to see. Thank you, Gagan. I got that. Shamarupa Prabhu, thank you. Chittakana Prabhu, thank you. All right. Next 7. Yastvindriyani manasa niyamya arabhate arjuna karmendriyai karma yogam asakta savishishyate. Translation: on the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga and Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. So again, if one is not purified internally, just desisting from work, that's what people might think. That if I don't do certain things, if I can willfully choose not to work or not to involve in actions, then I am free from the reactions of work. But Krishna says two things. One thing is you'll be helplessly forced to act, and second thing is it's better. And then if you don't act while you are having the internal desires, then you are a pretender. So it's Krishna says it's better you act sincerely with whatever you can, and that way make steady progress. So, and Srila Prabhupada also writes in the purport about. Okay, I'll just complete this and then I'll get to the questions. Thank you. Can you give me the mouse? I just want to go a little bit down. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Srila Prabhupada actually writes here. Srila Prabhupada writes here. About this? Okay. Like this?
This means your video is there.
Oh.
So you have to put the text about this.
Perfect. So here it is mentioned a sincere sweeper in the street is far better than a charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. So at least we can understand that that these are Krishna's thoughts on not giving up actions. So even if in our life also we come across situations that are sometimes really difficult and our work is impeded, there are so many obstacles, forget getting any proper fruits, even to do work itself is difficult. But Krishna says try your best, because it is not something that unless you achieve perfection then only I am happy. But keep trying your best, and that way Krishna is satisfied. So what question did you have?
So Sudeep Prabhu is asking a question. Mind will dwell on sense objects even when we are trying to control it, is it not?
Mind will dwell on the sense objects even if we are trying to control it. Yes, that is true. But the problem in Krishna's case is that here is one example. Let me give a simple example. A person who is afraid of getting married and might have seriously dreaded the consequences and the effort one has to put to get married and maintain. Internally, you have the desire to have the intimacy of marriage, but you do not want to do the work to maintain the marriage. So you can see in such a situation, very quickly, people might resort to all sorts of illegal methods to keep themselves happy, while at the external thing, one might be posing as a brahmachari or unmarried celibate. And Krishna says that is something that is not true. At least your intentions are, yes, this is what I am, it's better I get married and face the consequences and work and maintain the family, rather than having a lifelong or having the status of being a lifelong brahmachari but internally not purified. So does that answer, Sri? Thank you. All right. Okay, Gagan wrote on the Bhakti Shastri WhatsApp group that she reads every day. Thank you very much, Gagan, and let's continue further. Text 8. Niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jyayo hyakarmanah sharira yatrapi chate na prasiddhyed akarmanah. Translation: perform your prescribed duty for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. And again, coming back to the point here, Srila Prabhupada writes here, there are many pseudo meditators who misrepresent themselves as belonging to high parentage, and great professional men who falsely pose that they have sacrificed everything for advancement in spiritual life. So, Lord Krishna did not want Arjuna to become a pretender. So, here, please understand the focus right now is Karma Yoga, whether Arjuna should fight or not fight. Now, the Lord says it's better to fight, it's better to do your duties. And here Krishna is saying that you better perform your prescribed duties because you can't even maintain your body without performing your duties. So it's better you do your duty. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes about how it's better one performs one duty instead of just blindly renouncing. So this is the purport. We go to the next verse. Text 9. Yajñarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanah tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. Work done as sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So please understand that in the material world, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And since time immemorial, I have been taking so many births and performing so many activities. And what you see in the world is a living entity getting the results of their action, whether good or bad. So most of the people are shocked at some of the despicable things that happen to the people, or why there is so much of injustice and so much of suffering, so much of inequality in the world, that some people are born in a rich family and some people are born in such terrible conditions that it just breaks your heart that what it's horrendous. So one example I was reading in the newspapers, just think about it, is that both the parents were drug addicts, or they were having substance abuse going on in their life, and mom had consumed drugs also when she was pregnant. And when the baby was born, they didn't feed her milk, but they just made sure that they took some drugs and touched it to the lips as soon as she was born, because the doctors can immediately sense that she would exhibit withdrawal symptoms, and the parents would be implicated because of that particular situation. So the baby was just touched with her tongue with some drugs so that she wouldn't show those symptoms. So it's such graphic, such despicable situation in this material. Even animals wouldn't harm their child when they are born in this material world. But it is incumbent upon all of us to educate this morbid world about the serious ramifications. And you can see that those parents who did that, in the next birth, if they really don't take up to spiritual life, again are born in such a family, and they just continue their miserable cycle of birth and death in this material world. So one has to be careful to note that every action has its reaction. And Krishna says if you don't perform activities for Lord Vishnu, then you have equal and opposite reactions. But the question people will ask is, who's giving it? How do you know? Who's seeing it? But Bhagavatam says that there are 10 witnesses to every activity. We think that we are doing it secretly, but there are 10 video cameras recording you wherever you go. And so it is mentioned that the sunlight is a witness, the super soul is a witness, Yamaraj is a witness, and some demigods of the senses are witness. So there are all witnesses, and they corroborate the fact that yes, this is This person is implicated of this particular crime and there should be this punishment. It's perfect. It's universal. Otherwise, why would people have faith in God if God can be fallible, if God is subject to deficiencies? Well, I did activities. Prabhu, but God was sleeping at that time. He didn't see it. So nobody see it. There is no account. Or I can go into God's software system and delete all the stuff in my database. So nobody can even see it. I hacked into God's system. I deleted. We are good. It's perfect. So then what is our attitude? Do we like be very callous to this material world, thinking it's God creation and everything is happening by will of God? Or, do we get overwhelmed and then say that this is not true and God shouldn't put so much of difficulty? Yes, the baby did something in the previous life, but baby shouldn't get at that time when she's baby or he is a baby. They should get it when they are. So we can impose all sorts of stuff, but Krishna is a perfect um, dispenser of justice. So our best course of action is to actually is to actually act in such a way that one performs activities for Lord Vishnu. Otherwise, we are bound in this material world. Because one of the questions people ask is, how do these people who are apparently corrupt, who are apparently aggressive, who are capable of inflicting harm and pain to others for their own personal gratification, people who are just mean and vile, sometimes they are actually becoming very rich, very popular, and people who are greedy are making more money. I'm not greedy. Maybe I should cultivate greed. Maybe I'll get more money. But please understand that Krishna says that for every particular person I have created their due. And Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyan jagat tena tyaktena bindita magrida kasyas viddana. It's in the Upanishad it says that everybody has their due allotted by Krishna. But when you try to grab more, then you are implicated in this material world. So a simple example is, why are you in prison? Well, I robbed a bank. Why did you rob the bank? I wanted money, but that money was not yours. So now you see the problem of how you are in prison, because similarly the prison of material world says that everybody has their own due. So don't try to grab some which belongs to someone else. Otherwise you will be just implicated in this material world. And people apparently might have wealth, apparently might be enjoying life, quote unquote enjoying life, but their future is really tough. So because I remember a story of how a Brahmana came across 4 different kinds of people, and he gave 4 different kinds of benedictions uh, for that kind of person. So, for he came across a prince who apparently was enjoying life and who was like conquering and so on and so forth. And the sage said to him, "May you live forever." And then, so, and then he came across a a yogi who was performing severe austerities and who was, doing all sorts of tapasya. And he said, "May you die immediately." and and for a Brahmana, he came across and he said, uh, or for a person who is just enjoying life, or no, for a butcher, he said, "May you neither die nor live." And for a Brahmana or for a person who was enjoying life, he said, "May you live as long as you enjoy." Something like that. And people ask, "What's wrong with you? Why are you giving such benedictions?" So the sage said, for the yogi, because he performed severe austerities, his life is great. And if he dies right now, he starts enjoying his life in future. And for the king, son, his life is so steeped in sense gratification and sin that I said, live as long as you can or live forever, because once he dies, he's going to go to hell. And for the butcher, life is so horrible that even if he lives or dies, doesn't make a difference. And for a Brahmana, that is one fourth, I don't remember. So the idea is that it's very hard to see the actions, but nevertheless there are implications of each actions. In the modern world, because people don't have knowledge of soul, they think this life is great, but no, it's actually not. Any questions? Yes, yes, we do.
So, Sudhir Prabhu is asking how to balance between our work and devotional service. In 3.8, Krishna is recommending prescribed duty. What is our prescribed duty?
Good question. It's a big topic because I think the varnashram comes up here. Because Krishna is specifically talking about varnashrama. If you are duty, if you are a prescribed duty. In the modern context, it's hard because everybody is going to office, everybody is going to college, getting a degree, going to office. Everybody seems to be working like that, and there are a few people who are farmers and they are suffering and they have their own stuff. But in an ideal Vedic society, it was easy. You are a Brahmana, you had certain tendencies. You are inspected, you are watched, and you are observed by your guru. And then you said, okay, you have these tendencies, and so it's better you be this. And so it was never by birth, and it was clear. But in the modern context, because we are in Kali Yuga, and because we have to work for someone, um, the best course of action is to do our duty, whatever we been ordained, and not expect too much results out of it. So, for example, if you have to go to office and that's the source of your livelihood, then Krishna has placed you in that particular position because of your nature in the past. That is one aspect to it. The other aspect to it is that if you have certain tendencies that can be diverted into your job, then you can do it. If you have more of a mode of goodness, then you like to teach. Maybe there are jobs that that kind of um, channel your tendencies to the right way. More often than not, we arrive in Kali Yuga and then we are stuck with some company or doing some job or something like that. Pretty much we are, seriously, we don't have a choice. We are born, our parents said, get your education, I'm going to send you off to college, and the college slaps a degree on your face, and then you go and try to find a job. And jobs become so much the source of your livelihood. It's better be. You can pray to Krishna to get out of that situation, at least realizing that this is not the nice situation. But pray to Krishna and do the job to the best of your effort without worrying or envying about how others are growing or whatever, so on and so forth. It's okay. If they grow, they grow. But please understand that there should be some internal satisfaction too. So, does that answer your question, Sudhir? But if you have wealth, if you want, but most of the times I find people who work in jobs, but they have the strong Vaishya tendencies that I want to generate wealth, they start their own companies or they become entrepreneurs and they are pretty good at it. So the nature comes forth one way or other because you are so unhappy, so disturbed by working for someone, whereas your nature is a capitalist, then you start your own. So the nature will come about. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there's one question.
One question in WhatsApp. Thank you. So, are you saying that we should do good karma now to have good life after death? No, the idea is that there is no good life in this material world. The goal is to understand that our actions have reactions, and what you see in the world is everybody, having or getting reactions to their own work, whether good or bad. But eventually, spirituality comes to the point where you are neither afraid or neither uh, afraid of bad, or neither you are desiring good. So, if you can see in the one of the verses that were mentioned in the second chapter is to. Okay, let's go read the verse. So we read this particular verse in the second chapter. Thank you very much. Right. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in knowledge. So, Gagan, our goal is not to get a good life if you perform good karma this life, but to kind of overcome both the effects of good and bad karma. You may ask why. Here is the thing. Krishna says that there are four problems of material existence. This is Janma, which is birth, Mrityu is death, Jara is old age, and Vyadhi is disease. Irrespective of a good or a bad birth that you might have, you still have to take birth in this material world to experience the good or bad. And just staying in the material world itself is bad. The example given is that you work hard in the prison to get a better facility. You might be getting TV, you might be having your own fridge. Hey, you might have your own private bathroom. Nobody can see you when you are taking shower, for example, or whatever be the case. But nevertheless, you are still in prison, and your nature is to be free and be outside of prison. So, whether or sometimes people in prison get solitary confinement for quote unquote bad activities that they did. But either good or bad, you are still in prison. And the goal is to get out of that prison of material existence. But one has to be aware of the fact that there are reactions and actions as long as you stay in this material world. Hope that answers your question. Right. So let's go on to the next. So here Krishna says that work done as sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in the material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So, Varnashrama system, yes, that would be an ideal situation, but given the modern nature of the world, it is hard. And the other point is, Srila Prabhupada engaged all his followers that at least you stay where you are doing, where you are working, and where you are performing your duties, but help spread the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that is the best form of service that you can do. So, and Srila Prabhupada actually writes the same thing here also. Therefore, one has to work for satisfaction of Vishnu. Any other work done in the material world will be a cause of bondage. For both good and evil work have their reactions. So we don't want to be bound to the reactions of our work. Then the question might come is, I have been taking birth and dying for millions and billions and quadrillion lifetimes, and I must have performed so much of karma, good and bad. And how do I kind of get rid of it in one lifetime? Because one of the other interesting question, one of our relatives, I went to their house, and they asked us, God is not fair. If I do bad, I should get bad only in this life. If I do good, I should get good in this only life. Why do you like have a carryover, rollover stuff? No rollover business. You should have in this life. Then I said to him that, okay, so which means that if you kill one person, so you should be immediately killed, or somewhere down the lane you should be killed, and then that kind of balances out. He said, yeah, sure. And then he said, okay, what about this so and so terrorist who killed 250 people with a bomb blast? Then what? He started. Okay. You kill once, then what? Then you have to take birth again because it's 250 count. So that has to kind of balance out. Then how are you going to do it? Then he paused for a minute. So Krishna's justice is perfect, and sometimes we experience it in this life, sometimes we experience it in previous lives. So, because there is this book by Harold Kushner, why bad things happen to good people, and he analyzes this good and bad, and he comes to the conclusion that God has no power over the justice, or he's not as strong as we think that he can dispense justice. But if you don't put in the concept of soul in between, of course, you won't get it right. Question? Yes.
So, Sanket Prabhu is asking, there is no concept of karma in spiritual world.
Yes, no concept of karma. Because karma is a matter of keeping track. It's just your accounts, account balances, debit and credit balances. But in spiritual world, there is no concept of there is no bank that you have to hold your karma into. It's just completely you're free. You have no good, you have no bad. Uh, and you are just serving Krishna with no worry about what's going to happen in future. Because there is everything is eternal and spiritual. There is no move. There is no movement, or there is no force of karma. The time factor is needed to to manifest one's karma. So good or bad comes over a period of time, and as time moves along, then you get your good and bad. In the spiritual world, there is no concept of time in the first place. So where is good and bad going to affect? Yes, so good question.
Then what activities people perform there?
The activities of the people perform in spiritual world are completely for satisfaction of Krishna. People enjoy with Krishna. People have dances with Krishna. People eat food with Krishna. People have singing, music, dancing with Krishna. It's people cry for Krishna also. There are both good and bad. Good and bad, as in good in spiritual world is when you are with Krishna, and bad is when you are not with Krishna. But bad is better than good in spiritual world. In fact, in fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to show this mood of separation from Krishna, which is so intense that it is different. So there are spiritual activities, and but people might think this is boring. All the day long you do nothing but spend time with Krishna, only with one person. I have been married 6 months, and I am now dreading to spend the seventh month with my wife, only one person, and now only one person forever. Wow, no thanks. But please understand that Krishna's nature is infinitely sweet, and it is mentioned that every moment that sweetness increases and the happiness increases. So it's a different kind of equilibrium that happens in spiritual world. Because otherwise, people will dread when Krishna says that you come to my world and you never come back here again. No thanks. Oh my God. This is like I don't want to go back. No, it's not boring. It's actually infinitely sweet, and it keeps on increasing every single day. So, is that
Yes, yes, it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad I'm making sense today. So here, so next few verses actually, Krishna explains about the obligation of a human being in this material world. Text 10. Sah yajna praja shrishva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadbham yeshvostishta kamaduk. Translation. In the beginning of the creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." So here it is mentioned that Srila Prabhupada writes who is Vishnu and how he is the master of all yajnas. So that is the important thing. And in this age of Kali, what sort of yajna do you perform? You perform the yajna of Harinam Sankirtan. Here it is mentioned. So by chanting the names of Krishna, so the devotees are not only performing a spiritual objective by chanting, but they are doing their prescribed yajna by doing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. You get 2 for 1. You get spiritual advancement, and at the same time, every person has to do their yajna, and then you are doing this yajna. Then let's go to the next verse. And when you perform yajna, it is what happens. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreya param avapsyata. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifice, will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So, in the modern context, if you can see, because there is no sacrificial performances by general mass of people for the demigods, we can see such severe disturbances um, in so many places that people are just not happy because all the day you are just working. And the problem with that working is that you are not working for Krishna, you are working for your own sake, which means that the acts of prescribed duties are not for Krishna. So you can see the problem in the modern world. And Srila Prabhupada writes, performance of yajnas has many side benefits. And you can see here of how you will get proper food, and if you eat proper food, then memory becomes sanctified, and then memory becomes sanctified, then one thinks of liberation. Because we have one of these restrictions, no meat eating. And why do it's a big topic on why people say we shouldn't eat meat. Because the reason we shouldn't eat meat is because our inclination to serve God rapidly and drastically diminishes. We ensure that at least we make sure that, because those who are on the path of spiritual realization, they need certain avoid certain food stuff. And it's not like we are the only mad people who are saying we shouldn't have restriction. Every top athlete in this world, they have restrictions, and they put restrictions on themselves because they have a higher purpose to achieve. In fact, you can name it swimmers or exceptional swimmers. I think Michael Phelps was one person who was eating like 20,000 calories a day, and at 5 to 6,000 calories at one sitting. Why he would burn like that, 5 to 6 hours of swimming with that. So few people had restrictions, but otherwise most of the athletes, they are usually having some restrictions. They will say we shouldn't eat this, or should maintain our body because there is a higher purpose to achieve. Students who want to excel, they say you shouldn't eat certain foodstuffs that make you, for example, drowsy. And everybody has restrictions on food. It's not just that unless you have no purpose in life and your only purpose in life is to eat, then you have no restriction. So this is an important thing that just people devotees think that only you guys are the ones who are like abstaining and sacrificing. In one sense, true. In another sense, the prasadam sometimes is more opulent. You eat 4 days prasadam in the temple. It's so rich and luxurious. You just want something simple. Yes.
So there is a question from Yogesh Prabhu. He's asking, at some point, if all the living entities go back to spiritual world, will there still be existence of matter?
Yes, because the amount of people who are in the material world are infinite. And not everyone will go back to the spiritual world instantaneously. But we all wish that is true, because Krishna doesn't have to take the pain of creating material world and so on and so forth. But there are always a class of being. Vaimau Purucho Loke Ksharaschakshara Evacha. In the 15th chapter, we see that Krishna says that there are two classes of being, one who are fallible, the others who are infallible. And those who are fallible, they stay in the material world. So while Yogesh, we hope and pray your words come true, but past history tells us that there are always people who are inimical to Krishna and they need some place, and Krishna provides them the material world. Thank you for your question. Interesting question. Any other? Thank you, Vijay. Text 12. Ishtan bhogan hi wo deva dasyante yajna bhavitaha tayr dattan apradayabhyo bhukte stena eva saha. Translation. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to demigods in return is certainly a thief. So here we can see that human being or human life has some responsibility. As in Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport again and again that no one can manufacture foodstuffs. Seriously, if you try to think about it, we have manufactured so many things, but to manufacture one grain of rice just from the laboratory, which perfectly matches the grain that is there, that we have not been able to achieve. Just think about that food scarcity problem. But usually it doesn't work that way, because Krishna says grains will come from soil, and then to fertilize or to get the soil you need rains, and it's a fact. And at California we had that very drastic experience. For 4 years there was no rains, and none of our latest code helped, none of the latest software helped, the latest AI won't help in figuring out how to get rains. The rains will come only from sacrifice. So this is the simple truth. And the more people take part in the Sankirtan, the more there will be rains, there will be more prosperity. Otherwise, Krishna says, you just are a thief. You are not. You are not returning anything. You have a question? Yeah.
So Natwar Prabhuji is asking, what do we mean by sacrifice? Is it just an act to show gratitude by performing yajna?
Yes, because not it's more from the demigod perspective. Krishna is very clear. You give them something, they'll give something. It's more of a business deal. It's not optional. You provide them sacrifices. They subsist on your sacrifices. In turn, they'll give you rains. So they take share of that. Whatever sacrifices you perform, they take a share, because that's how they subsist. And in return, they'll say, okay, they have power over clouds. They have power over water. Sun has power to regulate the temperatures. Last time on the Labor Day weekend, we had sun. And people were like really, like they could taste the ferocity of sun just for 2 days, and they were burnt baked. So if it's clear, it's not we are independent. Krishna says, you need something, demigods need something from you, you give to them, they will give it to you, you both happy. So that is yajna, and that is Krishna. That is what Krishna has said. It's the rules which have been laid out by Krishna, both for demigods and for human beings. Right? For demigods, I said you give it to them, and then for human beings, I said you perform rituals, you perform sacrifices. And he says, what are sacrifices? And Natwarji, the good question is then, how do you define sacrifice? Where do sacrifices come from? So all these are mentioned in the next few verses. Okay.
From Sudeep Prabhu, he is asking the maximum part of our active life we are spending for our work or karma. How to make our karma to karma yoga practically?
By offering the results from a practical perspective, by offering one's results as much as possible to Krishna. It can be, for example, to a temple, or it can be maintaining one's own home as a temple. To the extent that we can purify our existence, then to that extent we are not bound by karma. So it is hard. It is hard. So as much as possible, we should abstain from blind sense gratification. You had a comment there? A smile on it.
Sanket Prabhu is asking, but don't demigods have everything already? Why do they care about
Sanket, why does Bill Gates work? Why is Larry Ellison working when they have already so much? Because everyone, Krishna says earlier on that everyone has to helplessly work according to the modes that they have acquired. Demigods are also under the modes of material natures, so they are helplessly acting with their roles of what they have been assigned to be demigods. And Krishna, because you are helplessly working, the demigods don't have everything already. They need to, for example, a rich man might have $100 million mansion. And if you have $100 million mansion, then you are paying about $1.5 or $1.6 million a year just as property taxes. So you need money to maintain what you have. So the demigods, though they have everything, they need maintenance. They need to maintain that particular position, and they are very, very sensitive to their position. Any change to their disturbance to their position, they are serious. They get all antsy and worried, and no, my position is going to get lost. So yes, so Krishna has said for the demigods, hey, get some stuff from sacrifice. It's a self-financing model, and Krishna says, I'm out of the picture. So that's the reason why demigods need that. It's just more of a business transaction. You give me, you pay me, and then I'll give you stuff. I'll render service stuff. Just like PG&E, don't you think they have everything? But why are they charging money from you? Because that's how they survive. Though they may have a lot of, quote, literally power. They have a lot of power. Does that answer your question?
Government also.
Government, yeah. Ultimately, nobody is independent. The concept that they have everything, they don't need anything, is from independence. The only independence comes from Krishna. He is the only independent person. Everybody else is dependent. So everybody else has to milk, as you said. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. All right.
There's one more question.
Okay.
So I had a question. Reena Mataji is asking. I had a question. So are all of us who are in the material world have been in the spiritual world at some point and did some offense, and so we are here, or we never saw the spiritual world ever and are trying to reach it?
Since it's such a loaded question about origin of Jiva, the answer is yes and no. It's no blanket answer, Mataji. Some people might have fallen, some people might have been here forever, and the forever term is very relative. So we are in the 50th year of Brahma. Yeah, 50th year. 28th day, just 50 years Brahma has celebrated his half century and golden jubilee. And we are on the 28th day after his 50th birthday. And in each day of Brahma, there is 1,000 yugas, 1,000 Divya yugas. Rather. And each Indra and Marut and other demigods, they are here for 71 cycles. After 71 cycles, they get rotated. You get a different Indra, you get a different Varuna, Chandra, and they keep rotating. But Brahma remains through all this. And Brahma lives for 300, no, how many? 311 trillion years, or 420 billion years, or something like that, according to human standards. And Brahma lives for that much time. Whoa, that is humongously long time. You know, just to live for 70, 80 years, we have such a struggle, but he is living for 311 trillion years. That seems like infinite. But Bhagavatam says that one lifetime of Brahma is one breath of exhalation for Vishnu. All the thinking gone. And then he breathes out. Everything comes back. And in between his breathing, 311 trillion human years have passed. So time is a very, very relative factor. How it influences is a very fascinating thing. So, to the answer to your question, it's yes and no. People might have seen and they have come back as an offense, as Jay and Vijay, or they have been here since quote unquote time immemorial. Because time itself is a very relative thing. So, my request is, you go back to Krishna hopefully in this very lifetime and ask him. He is the best person. Nobody can give you the right answer. Nobody has seen the time so back that they can remember exactly what happened. Only Krishna can remember. Even the demigods come and go. So they don't remember much either. Better ask Krishna. Is that okay with you? And I'll tell another, because you are a doctor, I'll leave with one example. A person comes under your care with a brain hemorrhage. And you know that he will not survive for more than a few hours. But the first question he'll ask is, I need to know what exactly happened before I let you treat me. You should go find out, tell me what exactly happened. But you are saying you need treatment or you're going to die in the next few hours. No, 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 no. I need to know exactly how it happened, what happened, how the sequence of my life went through, and where exactly did I do wrong. Then you will say that person, you are a crazy person. And as much as we would like to know our past, but we know that we are in such a situation where we need immediate help and to get out of that situation. And you will say to that person, you will say, look, I'll put you through treatment, and if you survive, then we can go and figure out what happened. So similarly, there are class of devotees who get so stuck up on this particular point. What happened? No, no, no. I need to know the answer now. Well, that is a tough thing to answer because A, nobody has seen the past, and B, our life is running out for a without expanding or without expending it for a higher purpose. Does that a little bit answer your question? Thank you. So here, actually, Srila Prabhupada writes um, that even if you want to live happily in the material world, I have nothing to do with spiritual life. What nonsense! I don't care. Okay, even if you have to stay in the material world, by nature you're going to perform sinful activities. Just even that one of the questions our um, devotee, voice of ISV, Rasika Shekhar Prabhu asked is, I won't do any activity. In the material, so reactions, you are scaring me with all this talk of reactions. Okay, I'll have a solution. I don't want to do any activities. Nothing. I will do nothing, which means I have no reactions. But the very fact is that you are staying in the world means that you have to eat. You are helplessly forced to act. I mean, you have to eat, then you are performing certain karma. So, here, if you see, uh, this Prabhupada writes here that for people who are just eating to maintain, they perform 5 types of sinful activities. When you sweep the house, you are killing insects. Maybe there is an ant going, and then you didn't even see that. There was a big boulder that was there, and there was a small ant that was there, and you were sweeping both. And by chance, that small boulder went over the ant and it killed the ant. When you were just sweeping, just normal activity of sweeping. Then that's a sinful act. You're just sweeping the house. You just boil the water, you kill so many germs. You use blender for grinding, you kill germs. So on and so forth. So you are chopping vegetables, and at least here, because of GMO, modified, whatever, you don't see. But in India, it's pretty common to see insects sometimes within your vegetables. Gross, but it's a fact. So you are killing. So Srila Prabhupada writes that for ordinary men, at least 5 yajnas, Panchamaha yajna are required. As you worship the demigods, you feed the people, you worship the forefathers, you read the Vedas, and then you offer food to all. So that's a kind of 5 Pancha yajnas that people have to do. But in this modern life, it's impossible. I know I'm scaring you, but it's better chant Hare Krishna. So everything is taken care of at once. Yes.
So one more question from Harita. Are these sacrifices to demigods mentioned here are karma kanda sacrifices? Are they different?
They are karma kanda sacrifices. So that's why Srila Prabhupada chooses the word carefully for the ordinary man in this particular purport, for ordinary men. And he says at least 5 yajnas are prescribed. But these are the karma kanda. So I want to enjoy life. That's my goal. I want to stay in the world. I don't care about your spirituality. You are saying world is a miserable place. But for me, world is a very nice place. I want to be happy here. So Vedas say if you want to be happy here, then at least perform 5 sacrifices. Because by nature, the world is a place where you are apt to commit sin, and because of the sin, you will suffer. By performing yajnas, at least that you are counteracting that particular sins that you are committing, just by staying in the world. Nothing to speak of murder, robbing bank, whatever all the illicit activities. Does that answer, Matthew? My apologies that we are doing this very unconventional stuff. that, but because the temple is closed and we are doing this. So my request again is, devotees, I humbly beg you to have a timetable of reading every day for 15 minutes. I want to uh, assure you that it will make your exam much easier. Okay, let me be, since we are in the Karma Kanda section. So fruitive mentality. So we can, at least if you read 15 minutes a day and carefully write down notes, your exam will be much easier to pass and you might get much higher grades in the exam. Ishopanishad and Nectar of Instruction, for the first semester you can still get away. It's two small books, 3 weeks before exam you memorize. But Bhagavad Gita is going to be really vast and it's going to be painful if you don't actually try to cram it in the last minute. So my humble request.
Thank you, Prabhu, from Harita.
Thank you. So again, yajna, let me go up a little bit. Thank you. Here it's mentioned that Lord Chaitanya, however, sorry, I'll use the notes. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yajna, namely Sankirtana yajna, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. Text 13. Yajna shishta shinah shanto muchyante sarva kilvishay bunjate te tvagam papam ye pachantyatma karanat. The devotees of the Lord who are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is first offered for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment, they really eat only sin. So this is where the prasadam stuff comes in. As much as possible, one has prasadam. One offers food to Krishna and has it. There are always emergency cases where one might not. So it is okay, but as much as possible one should offer food to Krishna. And it is clearly said that Krishna says that if you don't offer food and just eat, then you are just eating sin. More and more sin you are having. So this is important. And why? But Krishna is cruel. He says you have to live. Without working, you can't maintain your body. He gave us hunger, food, and all this stuff to deal with. Married men will be saying that groceries is too much of work. But on the other hand, if I don't offer, then I'm really if I don't eat, then I have to suffer. But if I eat and try to enjoy, then I have to suffer. But then Krishna is saying, at least if you offer food to me, then you don't have to take on the sinful activity. So, questions? Yes.
On the previous topic, Satyam Prabhu is having a question. Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question. Why Krishna created this material world and why it all started?
Because he wanted. Because there are, as I mentioned, there are two types of beings who want to enjoy separately from Krishna, those who want to enjoy with Krishna. For those who want to enjoy separately with Krishna, Krishna is so kind to create this material world. In fact, it is mentioned in Bhagavatam as Krishna looked around when there was no creation and he started the process of creation. He looked at all those entities that were still suffering in the material world or who had those desires, who were within him, because everything winds up in body of Krishna. There is some mute. It's okay, it's okay. So, he wanted to provide for his children, those who wanted to enjoy separately of him, a place, and therefore he created material world. So he created material world because we wanted it. And Krishna is so kind that he creates this material world and he comes again and again to establish the principles of religion and tell us that please come back home, don't waste your time here. It is we who want to kind of enjoy, and therefore Krishna created. Otherwise, Krishna had no purpose in creating this material world. This is really not the best place to have fun, I guess. Any other questions?
There are some comments.
All right. Natwarji, okay. What do you mean by sacrifice? We need restrictions in our life to become something. I'm glad that I'm on Krishna conscious path with restrictions. Okay, we do that. With the instruction comes the empowerment to fulfill it. Thank you, Prabhu, for thank you. Thank you, Srivasa Chandra Prabhu. Text 14. अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्याद् अन्न संभवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञ कर्म समुद्भवः. Translation: all living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. So, in the modern context, you don't see people having fires lit up in their homes and so on and so forth. So, Krishna says that, and in the previous times also, that was done only by the Brahmanas, right? Kings would not be lighting up fire, sacrificial fires, nor would Vaishyas, nor would Shudra. But here, yajna is born of prescribed duties. So a particular person performs his yajna, his prescribed duties, which means that they perform their yajna. But in the modern context, the problem comes is that I do it for myself, rather than my false ego becomes the center of my activities, rather than doing it for a higher purpose. And because I have this false ego, I make up my own rules. I'm not subservient to any rules. So because you might say people are having kids, prescribed duty. Housewife is taking care of the family and especially the children, which is a part of her prescribed duty. In the modern context also people are doing it. What's the difference? In the modern context, people are doing it out of a sense of false ego. And when necessity is good, they can have children. When necessity is not good, I won't. Example is, many people, I don't have money. So kids are such a drain on money, so I won't have kids. Oh, I have money, so I can have kids. So the whole idea, it has nothing to do with the prescribed duty of having children. It is more of a convenience. Not ready to take the pain of having children, for example. So the prescribed duties are something that a person does, and by doing the prescribed duties for satisfaction of Vishnu, then one is performing one's yajna. And then Srila Prabhupada goes into different lengths, especially about eating, how the eating is, everything is dependent on Krishna. As I mentioned earlier, we didn't produce so far not single grain of rice from laboratory. And God forbid we don't, because that is going to be so artificial. Krishna. Text 15. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmad sarvagatam brahma yajna nityam yajna pratishtitam. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice. Here it's not in the fires of sacrifice. When you perform your activity with a source of yajna or purpose of serving Lord Vishnu, then even your office activities actually become not binding. Because I have to do this duty. Somehow I am being put into this position as an engineer, as a coder, as a sweeper, as a judge, as a businessman. And I do my duty to the best of my ability without expecting fruits from it. Then I am just doing it for the sake of Lord Vishnu. Because I have to maintain my body. And would you all like to retire soon or have a stage of life where there is no prescribed duty? Well, hang on to the class, we'll come to there. Yeah. Text 16. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvarta yatiyaha aghayurindriya ramo mogam partha sujivati. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in the human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for satisfaction of senses, such a person lives in vain. So Krishna's direction is pretty clear. He said that for even if you want to live happily in the material world, you still have to perform sacrifices for demigods. But if you want to get out of the material world, then it's even a higher goal. But nevertheless, if you just say, I just want to live for my own self and I have nothing to do with any demigods, nothing to do with any higher purpose, if you are in the human form of life, then Krishna says you are just living a life full of sin. There's no higher purpose in your life. And it's so clear. This is here, I think this is what is a modern context, which the Prabhupada, right from the word go, just says that just not correct. Work hard and enjoy senses. Really, there are thank you. There are so many companies that say we work hard and we play hard, kind of thing.
My boss posted his office to work hard, play hard.
Vijay is saying, for those who didn't catch it, his boss posted in his cubicle the saying, work hard and play hard. So it's pretty much, that's about it, just that's pretty much the philosophy of modern existence. And that's so far away from what we are trying to accomplish for a higher purpose in life. Because even if you work hard, there is no guarantee of play hard, because your job might not be there, and then where is the question of playing hard? It is just so, my dear audience, just whatever you see, it's just the acts of the modes of nature are just doing their part, and neither the person who is working hard is working hard, neither the person who is playing hard is playing hard, but they are really lost in translation, as in they are not able to see the higher purpose of life, and the destination towards which they are going is really not that great. So don't be too much worried if people are working hard and moving ahead and so on and so forth. Not that you should not try. If you can get an option, you should definitely try, but don't be disturbed in case you don't get it. Yes.
From Harita. What is Jyotishtoma sacrifice mentioned in second chapter?
So the Jyotishtoma sacrifices are sacrifices for mentioned in the Rig Vedas, I believe, and they are meant to elevate you to the higher planets. You can, while you are performing sacrifices, you can still enjoy some sort of intoxicating beverages, which are offered to the demigods, and you can enjoy life. So some people say, don't drink alcohol, it's dangerous. Some people say, no. For some, it's actually a ritual. For some, actually, they think that alcohol is really God. In fact, there was a whole parody in one local language where coffee was treated as goddess. Oh, you are such a this, you are such a that. So, my point here is that when you perform Jyotishoma sacrifices, you get an opportunity to drink. It's a legal way of enjoying alcoholic beverages or intoxicating beverages. And then once you are done, you can go back to, if you are perfect in that sacrifice, then you go to heavenly planets. Higher quality of drink than compared to the material world. Less restrictions. Demigods don't have so many restrictions as we do. And their flow is, and their supply is much bigger. Their bodies are much suitable for handling that. There are, you drink so much, then you need beautiful women too. Otherwise, what's your point, right? Then you are nice, beautiful women in heavenly planets who don't get old, who don't have, their body doesn't stink like here. They don't have sweat. They don't have old age. Their senses are much stronger. So we have a capacity to enjoy some material object, but their capacity is much higher. And the material also is much finer. So they have that capacity. The whole thing set up is much higher sense gratification available on this. So the Jyotishtoma sacrifices are enabling to kind of get there. So, but nevertheless, still part of in the material realm. It's like getting AC and good food in prison. Is that okay, Harikam? Okay, this is where we come to the place where you don't have to do work. Yes, Twatma rasireva syat, Atma triptascha manava, Atmanyeva vasantushtas, Tasya karyam na vidyate. But for those who take pleasure in self and whose human life is one of self-realization and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for them there is no beauty. So if you see Jada Bharat in the Bhagavatam, when Maharaj Bharat became a deer in his next life, and then after the deer life he became Bharat, or he was called Jada Bharat. In fact, it was a very misnomer to his name. Jada means gross. And Bharat, he was not a gross Bharat. Actually, he was self-realized soul by that point of time. And you can see he was just living like a truly a deficient person. And the modern politically incorrect term is retarded. But he was just living like a deaf and dumb person. He didn't really care of what people thought of him, and he was moving around with no duty to perform. And he was not, going to office or something like that. He was just living with no duty to perform. So, if in the state of self-realization, if a person is beyond the modes of material nature and self-realized, then there is no duty to perform. But please note, Jadabharat was being maintained by Krishna, and he was not getting fine food every day from five-star hotel. In fact, it said in Bhagavatam, sometimes he would get a lot of food, sometimes he would get less food, sometimes he would get fresh food, sometimes he would get stale food, sometimes he would get nice food, sometimes he would get burnt food. But in any case, the beauty was that he saw all the food as same, and yes, he had it as mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the best test of self-realization. If you say, "Ish, this what food is this?" then you're not yet there. So don't quit your job. So another indication is that such a Krishna conscious person is no longer interested in material activities and no longer takes pleasure in material arrangements like wine, women, and similar infatuations. Thank you very much. So here it's mentioned another test of being self-realized is that these things no longer either disturb or affect you. Often in India, people take advantage of people's gullible faith and they think that they can become swamis, but they still have all the interests in these things, wine, women, and eventually women is the cause why so many people get exposed and get busted. But yeah, yeah. Then, and please understand, it's not a one-way thing. Man getting interested in women. Women also can be self-realized. And it is said in the 9th chapter, when we can read the 9th chapter, of how even women also can cross over the ocean of material existence. Sriva Vaishyas Tato Shudras. And then women no longer are interested in man. So why do you ask how, why? Because then you see just man and women as material bodies, made of material nature. And really have nothing to do with that. Just think about it. This was a startling example. I was going over the photos of my daughter, and there was a few videos of my daughter when she was like 2 or 3 years old. And I was like looking at those pictures, and then I felt like touched. When she was 3 years old, she was 2 or 3 years old, she was doing all her not pretty things. And he said, and then I was like looking at those pictures, and I was looking at that, and said, "Oh, I miss you so much." And my daughter came right next to me, and she was right there. "Hey, I'm still here." I was startled, shocked. Yes, who am I missing then? Who am I missing? She said, Yeah, right here. Who are you saying you're missing? Just think about it. I was like, it's such a profound time. Who are you missing? That person is right next to you, but that person has changed. The material nature changed that person from the 2-year-old body to the 10-year-old body, which is different and which have a different set of emotions. But that person is there. So if I say I missed you, which means she's right next to me, or what am I missing then? So the material nature disguises the bodies in such a way to attract attention, but really they are just bodies. Then if I miss that person, which means I never saw the soul of my daughter, and the soul is still there. Or if you are thinking that person is your body, that what body is always going to change. So what did you miss then? Makes sense. Text 18. Naiva tasya kritenartho na krite neha kaschana na chasya sarvabhuteshu kaschid artha vyapashrayah. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on other living beings. So you are at a stage where you are completely identifying not with your material body, but as a spirit soul. And you see this body as a covering. You just, it really doesn't matter. Let me complete a little bit more and then we'll take it. Tasmad asaktah satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purusha. Translation. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. So here you can see a lot of anxiety in the material world comes from somehow thinking that I am the controller of the fruits of my action. I made that happen, and I didn't make that happen. And you think like that, and the whole world also looks as if you are the doer, and you are the controller. You sales, for example, sales. There are superstars in sales who hit their numbers, as if they created somehow those sales. And there are people who are quote unquote losers who couldn't. It was just happening by will of nature. And because I think I am, and people think you are, the whole world is, likes and dislikes, and unlike and dislike, and friend and defriend. It's the whole nature goes on like that. But Krishna says, just do your duty. You are born in this world. You have been put in this situation. So just do your duty without being attached to your fruits. Because if you are doing your duty, if you are destined to get the results, you will get it. If you are not, no matter what, you will not. Because one of the most shocking things happened in this country was when the president became president. Trump became president. People were shocked. How? I mean, if it's impossible. He himself thought he'll never become the president. In fact, he was running as a president to promote his TV show. Unfortunately, now he thinks White House is a dump. It's a horrible, because he's used to living in like fancy towers in Manhattan, and having fancy gold toilets, so on and so forth. But destiny, you keep doing your work. Destiny is you will get it. If not, it's not yours. So you try your best, leave the results to Krishna. You are not the controller. So you had a question for me?
There are two questions. One from Prasanna Prabhu.
Hari Bol Prasanna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Is it fair to say that person whose human life is of self-realization, that person is not bound by the principles of Varnashrama Dharma, or that he surpassed the stage where that person is no more judged by principles of Varnashrama Dharma?
Can you repeat the?
So the question is, when the person reaches the stage of self-realization, can we say that he is not bound by the principles of Varnashrama Dharma?
Let's take that question first. That is true. Because when you are in the stage of self-realization, that's what Krishna says. If your life is of self-realization, and if you are satisfied only in the self, means completely you are self-realized soul, then you have no duties, no prescribed duties to perform. means you are neither a Brahmana nor a Kshatriya nor a Vaishya, nor you need to perform certain duties. So you are beyond that. Yes. So please go for the next part.
Next part is, or that he surpassed the stage where that person is no more judged by the principles of Varnashram Dharma.
So, Prasanna, what do you mean no more judged by the principles of Varnashram? How do you say? I mean, I didn't understand that part. I'll wait for your response. Huh?
There's a 30-second debate in the video.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Ram.
Our good sins and bad sins are being judged.
Our good sins and bad sins are being judged by others. If you are self-realized, then you are not worried about being judged. So Maharaj Bharat, or Jada Bharat, when he was a self-realized soul, and he really didn't care about the thoughts or what people of the world will think of him. People, most of them thought that he was actually a deaf and dumb person and who was completely a retarded person. But he really didn't care. When you are in the bodily concept, then you care for the criticism from others. Because when you are self-realized, and you are not influenced by either evil or good actions of this world, nor are you influenced by the external good or bad comments from the people of this world. Because the good and bad are being judged only is touching your body, not your soul. As long as you are bodily conscious, then you are affected by good and evil. If you are not, therefore he says, person of Pasya Prajna Pratishtita is that those who get evil and those who get good, they neither despise nor praise. Why is that? It seems really because you are beyond the body, you really have no connection with good or bad of this world. Jada Bharat actually, in the later stages, he was, so there was dacoits. Most of the people know the story, that there were a band of dacoits who were searching for a human being to offer to Goddess Kali. And Jada Bharat at that time, he was guarding the fields of his brothers. And by chance, they came upon Jada Bharat, strong, stout and sturdy. He said, this is a good person to offer as a human sacrifice to Goddess Kali. Now, Jada Bharat, he didn't call 911 at that point of time. Or he was like, he didn't go to the immediate gun shop and buy a gun. Or he didn't show karate chops to those people. So, because he was not in the bodily concept of life or death didn't mean. Because it seems evil was befalling upon him when he was being taken away to be chopped off by his head. And it's a bad, quote unquote, bad thing that was happening. But Jada Bharat was not disturbed. Because he realized life or death, it's just happening with the body. It's not with me. So, the band of dacoits took him. And as you know the story, how Goddess Kali actually emerged from that statue and killed all the dacoits in Spain. So, is that answer your question, Prasanna? Or? So, shall we go to the next verse then? Text 20. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadayah loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumatasi. Translation: Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by the performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for educating people in general, you should perform your work. So here Srila Prabhupada writes that Janaka was an associate of the Lord. He had no reason to perform his duties, but he did it just um, out of an example where they attained perfection by following this path. Text 21. Yadyad acharari shreshtas tattad evetaro janah sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by his exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So Srila Prabhupada writes also that one should follow the footsteps of the great devotees. Going a little faster. Text 22. Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nana vaptam avaptavyam varta eva cha karmani. Translation: O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems. Nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything. Yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So, I have a quiz question. So, for those, please answer it on the WhatsApp or any other place. O son of Partha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems. So Krishna has no work prescribed for him, right? Nor am I in want of anything, nor I have a need to obtain anything. Yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. Isn't that contradictory? There is no prescribed duties for me, but I am engaged in prescribed duties. So does the Lord have prescribed duties prescribed for him or no prescribed duties? So what is the answer? What do you think is the answer? You can just type it in and just give your thoughts on that. We'll wait for 30 seconds. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. 30 seconds? Maybe. Right. You should, I don't know how many Mahamantras make 30 seconds. Okay. Jarathakur Prabhu says, nor has he a need to depend on any other living entity. What about eating foodstuffs that were living entities? How is that not dependent on living entities? Verse 18. Please explain. Yes, Jarathakur Prabhu, we will come to that particular point also. So, when we say not dependent on any living entity, which here the Lord is mentioning that you are not subservient to anybody. You are not seeking employment from anybody. You don't have to depend on any living entity, including the demigods. So the idea here, Krishna is not saying that you should not eat or you cannot eat, because the very nature of this world is such that one food, one living entity becomes food for another living entity. Ahastani sahastana apadani chathokpadam falguni tatra mahatya jivo jivasya jivanam. Narada Muni, in the first canto of Bhagavatam, when Maharaj Yudhishthira, what happens is that Vidura comes to him and he induces his elder brother Dhritarashtra to give up this life of dependency on his Yudhishthira, because Dhritarashtra and his sons, they plotted time and again to somehow or other get rid of the Pandavas so that the kingdom would be theirs and they could be secure and happy. But when it didn't come out, and when the Mahabharata war happened, when the entire Kaurava dynasty was destroyed, and the Maharaj Yudhishthira became the king. And when he became the king, Dhritarashtra was living under the care of Yudhishthira. Vidura once came and he said, "You are living like a dog at the mercy of Yudhishthira." Please understand, Yudhishthira himself was treating Dhritarashtra with such respect. In fact, he was just making him still feel that he was the king. Every big major decision he would involve him and he would talk to him and make him feel he's big and so on and so forth. But only Bhima was the person who had this anger against him and he would taunt him at every step. So, so then one day, Dhritarashtra along with Gandhari, influenced by words of Vidura, he left the kingdom for self-realization in north of Himalayas. And every day morning, Yudhishthir would go to the palace of Dhritarashtra to offer him respects. And one morning, they went to the palace and he found that Dhritarashtra along with his wife and his uncle Vidura had left. And then he was very despondent. He thought maybe I did something wrong and maybe I committed some offense against Dhritarashtra that he left, and he was very, very despondent. At this point of time, Narada came and he just said, he consoled. He said, "Please don't worry. Everybody is under the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one living entity is food for another living entity, and that's just the nature of this world. Because you are a self-realized soul, doesn't mean that you start eating rocks. You still eat food, but there is no dependency because Krishna is directly providing. You don't have to depend on anybody. So that is the meaning of being dependent on other living entities. Otherwise, Krishna said earlier, if you want to eat food, if you want to live, you have to eat food. You want to have food, then have grains. Grains perform demigod sacrifices because there is a dependency cycle there. But if you are a self-realized soul, because Krishna is providing you everything, there is no dependency. Does that a little bit answer your question, Jadra Thakur Prabhu? Thank you for your nice question though. I liked it.
People are commenting.
Okay. Okay, what are the comments?
I can read one by one.
Yeah.
Swapnil Prabhu is saying the Lord is not prescribed to perform any duty, but he does so to set an example in verse 3.21.
Excellent.
Veena Mataji, since the Lord came into this world, and so the nature of being here is to perform some sort of duty. Hence, in that sense, he is talking about prescribed duty. Narendra Prabhu, no one is higher than Lord Krishna.
That is true. That is true. No one is higher than Lord Krishna. That is true.
Natwar Prabhu, there is no prescribed duties for the Lord, but as mentioned in previous verse, whatever great man does, common men follow. So, if Krishna does some act, common men may also follow.
Thank you. So, exactly. So that is the thing. So here when Krishna says that I am engaged in prescribed duties, which means that when he comes to this material world, he has no need to perform, but yet he performs. If an ordinary self-realized man has no need to perform duties, Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the goal of self-realized man, what duties does he have to perform? But yet he performs the duty, as you said, just to show others. Text 23. Yadi aham na varteyam jatu karmanya tindritaha mama vartmano vartmante anusha partha sarvasha. For if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. So Krishna performed these prescribed duties, and then it continued. Text 24. Utsideyo ime loka nakuryam karma chedyaham sankarasya cha kartasyam upahanyam ima prajaha. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination, and I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So this word Varna Sankara, did we hear that word somewhere else in Bhagavad Gita? So please respond in case if that particular word Varna Sankara rings a bell in your they are married. So Srila Prabhupada goes into at length about the Varna Sankara aspect of how it impacts this material world. But there is one point though. If Lord Krishna came and performed his duties and everyone should follow in their footsteps, which means that uh, he performed some activities which people say, quote unquote, are immoral, and do we not perform that kind of activities too because following footsteps? This is a very, very important point. Um, Srila Prabhupada writes it. Naitat samachare jatu manasyapi hyanishvaraha vinashastyacharan maudhyat yata rudrobi jam visham. ईश्वराणां वचः सत्यं तथैवा अर्चितं क्वचित् तेषां यत् वचो युक्तं बुद्धिमां तत् समाचरेत्. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and His empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. So it is mentioned here that there is a difference between imitating and following. And Srila Prabhupada uses this example. Lord Shiva drank the poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean. And he writes before that, we should always consider the position of the Ishwaras who can actually control the movement of sun and moon as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate Ishwaras who are super powerful. A simple example is that if you are going at 90 miles per hour on the freeway and the cop comes behind and catches you, and then you say to the cop, you were speeding too. Hey, I was going at 90, means you at least had to do 93 to kind of overtake me. Hey, you are speeding too. But please understand that is a very fallacious logic because they are empowered. They have that power to go at that speed and stop you and give you a ticket. So similarly, or in other words, a cop is going at turning on his lights and there is some problem, and they are going at 90 miles per hour, and you follow them, chasing at them at 90 miles per hour. A cop comes behind you and gives you a ticket. Say, hey, that guy was going. I'm just imitating him. So what's wrong? So you see the simple example of how a simple, ordinary, common example that would be really ridiculous. That then people do acts of Lord Shiva by smoking ganja, saying that Lord Shiva did it. He drank the poison, so I can do it. So that is a very, very ridiculous argument. And Lord Krishna performed his Ras Leela, so let me also, kind of do that. And it's just ridiculous because their position is different and our position is different. So I hope that kind of answers that question. So it's an important distinction that Prabhupada makes here.
There are some comments and questions.
Yes, Prabhu.
So for the previous question you asked Varna Sankara, Swapnil Prabhu, Sankir Prabhu, they are replying on first chapter.
Excellent.
Tushar Prabhu is saying second chapter where Arjuna argues Varna Shankara to be the direct outcome of the war. It's a reason not to fight.
Thank you, Kushal Prabhu. It's just a slight modification. It is the first chapter, not the second chapter, but thank you. I think that must have been a typo.
It's a question.
Yes.
This was asked a little bit back in the time. So if Sankirtan Yajna is the prescribed Yajna for this age, as described here, why is not popular in other sampradayas or other religious practices? From Harita.
In most of the places, there are some sense of sacrifice that is asked for of their executioners. Every sampradaya they perform sacrifices or yajnas. But their yajna form can take different ways and meanings. But for the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he inaugurated the Sankirtan Yajna, that is the easiest. And you can see that more and more people are gradually taking to it. And more people, hopefully the other sampradayas also, they emphasize, if not outrightly reject, others, at least they emphasize the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, or holy names of God in any capacity. So it's the easiest method. Why they don't do it, that is something that other sampradayas should take note of, in fact. I believe that there must be a way in which they can emphasize that and note that that's the easiest way, following the order of Mahaprabhu. Because irrespective of which sampradaya, they are worshipping to the same God. And that God is Krishna, who came as Mahaprabhu. So if Mahaprabhu's instruction is that you perform Sankirtan Yajna, it is applicable to all the sampradayas. Whether they can use their scriptures in that sampradaya to bring forth that particular point. Because Lord Shiva, let's take, now we are on the topic of Shiva. So Shiva is Vidra Sampradaya. And he is always meditating on the Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna. In fact, his name, form, and so on, and so forth. It's mentioned that how in the Bhaktivinoda Thakur song that Shiva becomes really mad when he hears the name of Krishna. So all these, Brahma, Chaturmukhi Brahma also like jumps with joy. So all these sampradayas who are worshipping Krishna, they should at least encourage to chant the names of Krishna following their sampradaya acharyas. Like Shiva worships Krishna, so maybe they can use that more better. Even, I don't know how to say, but every sampradaya has their chants, right? Every sampradaya, they have some sort of chants. Irrespective, even if the bogus, so-called Babas sampradayas, the big-haired Babas, small-haired Baba, turban-haired Babas, every sampradaya has their chants. Impersonal people have their chants, right? Yeah, so Mayavadis, initially, they have their chanting and bhajans and so on and so forth. Though it is completely, they think it's material, but everybody has it, they don't highlight it. The goal changes. But our goal is just Sankirtan. Long answer, Haritamati, but does that little bit answer? Okay.
Next question, or we will take later?
We'll take later. Let's continue a little more. I think we have an hour, less than an hour to go. We have a few more verses to cover. Sakta karmanya vidvamso yata kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvamsata shaktas chikirshur loka sangraham. As ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of people, for the sake of leading people on the right path. So, and then here, text 26, Na buddhi bhedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam joshet sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharam. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to fruitive results of prescribed duties. A learned man should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. So, for the people who are seriously attached to work, giving up the work is not the best of solution. Because Arjuna's question was, I don't want to fight this war, I want to give up my activity. But Krishna is saying that for those who are engaged in the process of karma yoga, it is better that they do that. And we get into the next verse or next chapter of Jnana, wherein it is said by performance of one's duty for sake of Lord Vishnu, you are gradually purified and you come to the state of knowledge. But if you abruptly stop doing your work, then going to the next path, which is Jnana, is very difficult. In the next 6th chapter, we'll do the relative yoga ladder, wherein we have Sakam Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, and then from that you get Jnana Yoga. If you tell a mind not to perform your duties, prescribed duties, and you give up capriciously, then we are blocking that person's gradual advancement. Then the question will come is, hey, Krishna is saying you shouldn't disturb. Why are you doing this distribution? Are you not like knocking on the door and then telling do this and you should, chant Hare Krishna and give up all these nonsense duties that you are doing, or whatever is the case? How do you explain that? Well, you write the answer and then we'll write what do you think is the right answer. Should we go on book distribution because Krishna is saying you should not disrupt people and you should let them do their duties? What do you think is? So let's continue with that. Text 27. Okay, let's take a question now. Then we can go next.
So Kushal Prabhu is asking, Hare Krishna Prabhu, is it possible to become self-realized in today's world?
Yes. By taking to the process of devotional service, one not only knows Krishna, but one becomes self-realized, as in you know what is your relationship with Krishna. So I think it's a good time to at least give a brief overview of the yoga ladder, and then we can. The bhakti that we are doing now is so rare and precious that it comes only after a long time. Krishna says that first you get purified, you perform Vedic activities. Then after Vedic activities you get purified of that, and then you perform Nishkam Karma. You don't perform activities in a fruitive mentality. Then from Nishkam Karma Yoga, you get perfection after so many lifetimes. Then you become jnana, or you become knowledgeable, or you become realized that you are a spirit soul. Then after that, you actually renounce sense gratification, or you renounce activities in totality, karma sannyas yoga in the 5th chapter. Then, but the goal of jnana is that you come to the point that Krishna, you are self-realized and God is impersonal. Maybe I am equal to God. Maybe I am on the same level as God. There is no relationship. So after that is dhyana, where you see, okay, God is not just a formless person, but is a localized Paramatma. And perfection of dhyana is to achieve or see Krishna as a super soul within everyone's heart. But beyond that, then you can actually get bhakti. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shoshati na kamshesi. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu madhyaktim lavate param. Which means, Krishna says, first come to the platform of self-realization. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shoshati na kamshati. Then you see that every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, which is the perfection of dhyana. Mad bhaktim lavate param. Then you will get money. Mahaprabhu's mercy, you are getting that now. So by doing bhakti, you get everything that is in the other paths too. So self-realization becomes like an automatic thing. It's an easy thing. So does that answer your question, Kushal? Thank you. So going to the next verse, Prakrite Kriyamanani. This is a famous verse. Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha Ahankara Vimudhatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the modes of material nature. So this is one of those things that this is where the people ask the questions. If everything is carried out by the modes of material nature, then why am I suffering? Or what is my part in that? So just think about the answer as we go along. And Srila Prabhupada writes that one who works with the consciousness of Krishna has a different mentality than one who is just thinking that he is the doer. Text 28. Tattva vittu mahabaho guna karma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. Or one who is in knowledge of absolute truth, O mighty arm, does not engage himself in the senses, in sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for the fruit integrals. Here Krishna is so clear in saying that sense gratification is having a different path, and those who are working with knowledge are in a different kind of path. And Vadanti Tat Tattvavidas is something that is quoted here in this particular purport. Text 29. Prakrite guna sammuraha sajjante guna karmasu tan akritsna vido mandan kritsna vin navichalayet. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached, but the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior to the performer's lack of knowledge. So, one of the reasons why we do book distribution, Srila Prabhupada writes here in the purport here, men who are ignorant cannot appreciate the activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable times. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risk, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for human being. So, my dear book distributors, please do not get discouraged. We have different classes of people who are in different modes, who are doing different kinds of things, who have a different past history and background. So we just do our best and depend on Krishna and help them along. So that's the extent of that. Text 30. Mai sarvani karmani sannyasyadyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vikatajvara. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works onto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, and with no claims to proprietorship, free from lethargy, fight. So therefore, Krishna says that, work for me. So that way, then you are not bound into this material world. So if one works for Krishna, then one becomes happy. And the other point here is free from lethargy and then egotism. Here, this is mine. I should fight. So one should fight for Krishna. Text 31. Then, Prabhu, all this is too much. Let's just be happy. What is the benefit? So here you get the benefit here. Text 31. Yeme matam idam ityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante tepi karmabhi. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive action. So this is the great benefit of performing duties according to Krishna, is that you are not bound by your actions. Otherwise, you are just bound by the actions in this material world. Completely, since time immemorial, you are bound. Text 32. Etvetad abhyasuyanto nanu tishtanti me matam sarvajnana vimudam stan viddhi nashtan chetasaha. But those out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of knowledge, be fooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Text 33. Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha prakriter jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani vigraha kim karishyati. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he is acquired from three modes. What can repression accomplish? So, here again the point is that the nature one acquires in this material world is very strong. You just can't shake it overnight. Therefore, you can see people doing their activities that they are doing. Earlier we talked of very rich people still working, right? Larry Gates. Larry Ellison, not Bill Gates. Why are they working is because their nature or joy or satisfaction lies in work and not of results itself per se, particularly. If the results were the source of your happiness, then you should not be working. But because you have a nature and you are helplessly forced to act, you will keep acting. Which gives a deeper indication that the soul is happy in doing activity or service. That is the real joy of the soul or the real satisfaction. But for those who are in this fruitive mentality, what is this? I'm just working so hard and I'm getting nothing, pittance. It's useless. Then the frustration starts because your joy is not in the work itself, but in the fruits of the work. And the fruits of work are ordained by destiny. You are not going to control it. So that's where the frustration comes without that lack of knowledge. So here again, Srila Prabhupada writes, no one should, thank you, no one should give up, no one should suddenly give up his prescribed duty and become a so-called yogi or transcendentalist. It is better, it is better to be situated in one's position and try to attain Krishna consciousness and superior training. Thus one may be freed from clutches of Maya. But this also verse doesn't mean that if I am a drunk, I'll remain drunk. What can repression accomplish? So, but we have to be careful with how you take this particular verse. Indriya yasyendriyasyate ragadveshau yavastitau tayorna vasham agachet tauhi yasya paripantina. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. So Srila Prabhupada goes on in so many ways. Please understand that we are still in Karma Yoga, which means I am helplessly acting, but I should somehow fine-tune my actions for Lord Vishnu, so that I am out of that karma. Text 35. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swa anutishtatat swadharme nidanam shreya paravdharmo bhayavaha. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duty perfectly. Distraction in the course of performing one's duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous. So, a simple example is mentioned here. For a Brahmana, for example, a Brahmana who is in the mode of goodness is non-violent, whereas a Kshatriya who is in the mode of passion is allowed to be violent. As for a Kshatriya, it is better to be vanquished than follow the rules of violence than to imitate Brahmana who follows the principles of non-violence. If you can see here, a Kshatriya is meant to punish others or fight the battlefield because you are violent and you need that tendency of violence to kind of do that. But violence is too bad. Either I will die or I'll kill someone and take it on my head. It was what Arjuna's initial argument was. He said, if I kill, I'm going to be implicated in this sinful reactions. I don't want to. So he was trying to be following the path of a Brahmana. But his nature was that of a Kshatriya. So imagine that happens. Actually, the dangerous can be like, so if you tell the government, because there are these people, I don't understand, I never understood. There are people who are against capital punishment. They do this whole thing about how the capital punishment or death by execution should be abolished. But imagine if a government suddenly says becomes very charitable and non-violent. This just be non-violent. Then people will come and rob your houses and they can kill your loved and near ones. They can kill you. And there will be no sense. There will be completely chaos and dangerous society. So it's better that if the king has to be violent, you better follow your path. Rather than taking to the path of non-violence. Actually, it's dangerous to the society. If the government starts thinking like a Brahmana. The Brahmana is supposed to forgive. Brahmana is not supposed to be violent. Because in the story of Mahabharata, there was sage. So who had the cow? You remember? Who had the Kamadhenu cow? I think Vashishta. So yeah, if I remember right, it was Vashishta. And Vishwamitra wanted that Kamadhenu cow. And situation came that Vishwamitra created a lot of armies that attacked Vasishta and the Kamadhenu cow. And the Kamadhenu cow actually took shelter of Vasishta. I don't remember the exact context. The story is there in Mahabharata. And then the Kamadhenu took shelter of Vasishta. Vasishta could create his own armies and counterattack the armies that were coming in. And he said, by nature I am a Brahmana. I can't be violent. I can't kill these people. So either you can leave me or you can just, but I can't go and take weapons on your behalf because that's not my nature. So the same case happened when Lord Ram came, when Vishwamitra came to take Lord Ram from Ayodhya. He was 16 years old. And then he said, I have to perform these sacrifices. And these Tataka is destroying my sacrifices. I need your son. And then Dashrath was all like, he said, his minister said, Vashishta said, look, he can defend all those demons by himself. He has such mystic powers and weapons. In fact, he gives a lot of weapons training to Lord Ram and give weapons. If he can have so much of weapons, why can't he use those weapons? But because during the sacrifice, you are not allowed to be violent. As a rule, Brahmanas are supposed not to be defending themselves, though they have that capacity. So, then same thing comes here. It's better to do your duty and depend on Kshatriya than you are a Brahmana and trying to take up the weapons and shoot. So this is what is mentioned here. Any questions?
There is one question from Kishore Prabhu on the previous topic.
Yes.
In Bhagavad Gita 3.26, it said, he should engage them in all sort of activities. They're not ordinary men. Could you please give examples of what sort of activities a devotee should engage the ordinary people in, Prabhu?
In our temple, we have people who come. They want to cook, they want to clean, they want to do something for the temple, or for a person who is who is like against Krishna. At least engage them in moral values. At least say to them that just offer your food to God, or at least regulate your food. So don't eat some nonsensical food. So at least some sort of ethical or morality. So there is this great controversy going on in ISKCON. Some people say you have to be like very conservative and just chant Hare Krishna or you're a fool kind of situation. Or some people say there is a middle path wherein you go and you preach of these relationships and or mind control or stress management or some things which are not directly related. Somehow or other, so you kind of intersperse. So I believe we can use any method. So if we can help bring Krishna into picture, you can use stress control or mind control or whatever you want. But if you are based on the person or the audience and their inclination, you can tactfully engage them in service of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, when book distributors asked him, can we lie? He said, no, you should never lie. You should not misrepresent these books. You should be honest. But there is an art, there is a skill, or there is a tact in how to engage. So it will take a while, and it's an individual case. You can see how can be engaged in activities which are conducive. So, for example, a person is addicted to eating meat. Then you can gradually engage him in non-vegetarian at initial or vegetarian activities. Initially, it might seem like there is nothing Krishna conscious there. At least that for that person, it is a gradual move. For a person who's saying, I want to eat meat, well, maybe beef. Srila Prabhupada, these are not my words. In Bhagavatam, actually, he says, those who want to eat meat and they can't give it up, then at least let them eat goats or chicken or whatever. So, based on person, you just wean them away from what they are in. So it's a personal situation. It's hard to tell just in general way, but at least bring them from the mode of passion and ignorance to mode of goodness. It's a generic term. At least you are there. That will help. So does that help, Vishal Prabhu? So because we are in the process of karma yoga, and because the activities done by the living entities have to be performed for Krishna, otherwise they cause bondage, Arjuna has this very fundamental question. So, why do people commit sinful activities as if somebody is forcing them to? And what is the reason? Who causes it? And this is Arjuna's question. Arjuna uvacha atakena prakritoyam papam charati purushaha anichan api varshneya balad iva niyojataha. Oh, Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what one is impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. Maybe the super soul within is causing? All the
But Prabhupada in the first chapter, in the purport, he writes, the Supreme Lord directs the senses of the living entities.
So maybe that really adds up. That's another statement I can bring to the court, that God is responsible for my sinful activities. I am doing it under the guidance of God. Maybe. Let's find out the answer to that. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, he washes his hands off. He says, me, not me. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha, Mahasano Mahapapma, Vidhi Enam Ihavairinam. Vidhyenam Ihavairinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. So, the living entity, when you are in the modes of material nature, then if you associate too much with the mode of passion, then that kind of transforms into wrath, and that transforms into sinful activities. One example is people who embezzle money, for example, who kind of steal money from their employers. If you can see that because they have more of passion in them and they want to enjoy certain objects, and the desire for the objects or a situation becomes so strong that it overrides their good intelligence, and they give vent to that. It's not that. Then you will say, how am I responsible, right? Because it's a material mode of nature. It's acting upon me. And I did it. Why are you punishing me? I thought it's easy to steal some money. I stole it. Why are you punishing me? But the thing is, it is your responsibility not to feed that thoughts. It's your call whether you can act or not. More often than not, because you are weak, because spirit soul is weak, and it's under the strong modes of material nature, you are impelled by it. Prakriti Kriyamana, it's being pushed. But when you are in the mode of goodness, then you are not as much, you have that sense of discrimination, which Krishna says you should have. You should at least know that this is what is impelling you and how to counteract. It's mentioned here. So, so at least the first purpose is we should say, who am I and why am I being pushed and how can I overcome it? So that is the kind of thing it is mentioned here. Bhumena vriyate vachnir yata darsho malenacha yatol bena vrito garbhas tata tene damavritum. As fire is covered by smoke, as mirror is covered by dust, or as embryo is covered by the womb, a living entity is covered by different degrees of this lust. So here, this particular lust, the Acharyas write, these three examples give the three stages of lust in different modes of nature. So here, as fire is covered by smoke is one example, as mirror is covered by dust is another, or as embryo is covered by the womb. So if you are an embryo covered in the womb, there is no chance. You are like really tightly covered, right? You just can't do anything. So for those who have this lust in that degree, they are really impaired. And you can see, criminals. They come out of the prison, they keep doing the same thing, even though they have like that experience. They're still like hardcore criminals. They just keep doing this again and again. A person who is For example, suffering from sexually transmitted diseases. As soon as he's treated, again he goes to the brothel, and again it's just, you're so like covered by lust, you just can't get out of it. But the second stage, or the better stage, is mirror covered by dust. Is you can't see much, you can't see your own image, but at least you can help cleanse the mirror from that dust. And then fire covered by the smoke. Yeah, you can still cook. There is still a fault of fire, but at least the smoke you can still cook or do performance act. So based on which stage you are, the lust can act in that level. It is mentioned here. So for animalistic stage, it's really impossible for them. Just think about it. They have no concept of marriage. They can have any sexual partnership, no restrictions. They're completely impelled by lust. So that is in that particular stage.
So, saying the volume is so increased.
Hare Krishna. Is the volume better? I'll just wait 30 seconds before you can answer and say, is it better? All right. I'll continue, and then we have just few more verses. Text 39. Avrutam jnanametena jnanino nitya vairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalenacha. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So here it's clear that there is no point in feeding the fire that just burns more and more. It's better to stay away from this. And there is no question of happiness. People try to be happy in so many ways by kind of quote unquote enjoyment, but it just adds more fuel. And Krishna gives the location: Indriyani manobuddhir adhyatishta asyadishtanam etay vimohayatyesha jnanam avritya dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of living entity and bewilders them. Again, each purport is beautiful. Take your time and read. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tridhatuke swadhi kalatradi bhauma ijjadi yat tirtha buddhi shalilena karhichit jnaneshva abhijneshu saeva gochara. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsman, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply as to take a bath rather than meet of men of transcendental knowledge, there is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Text 41. Tasmat tvam indriyanyadav niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Okay. Therefore, O Arjuna, O best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So here Krishna is saying this is our enemy, and that one has to fight, everyone has to fight this particular enemy. So the other point here is, Srila Prabhupada writes, this is a very nice point. Lust is only the perverted love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. So the point here is, just because you have lust doesn't mean it has to be eliminated, because lust is a perverted reflection of one's love for Krishna. It is that one has to refine or fine-tune or orient one's lust to serve Krishna. Lust means that I want to serve my own senses and my own body. But love means there is a higher purpose. And that is, the transformation is needed, not the destruction of the so-called lust. Because it's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that lust means satisfaction of oneself, and then love means satisfaction of Krishna. Text 32. Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manah manasastu parabuddhir yo buddhe parasastu saha. Translation. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So here you can see that how there is a gradation. How there is a gross body or the gross sense objects. And then there is the mind that controls the senses. And then there is intelligence, which is even finer. And then there is the soul, which is the finest. Text 43. Evam buddhe param bhudva samstabhyatmanam jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupa durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So let's read the purport. This third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without considering the impersonal voidness, ultimate end. In material existence, one's life is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. Desire for overlording and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control material senses, the mind and the intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribed duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in transcendental position without being influenced by material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by the higher intelligence. So you can see how Krishna gradually says, in the second chapter he just said soul. He never talked about mind. He never talked about the practical difficulty of how the lust can attack the mind and how the senses are under the mind. So in this he describes more about how just by the theoretical knowledge is not enough. He's talked about sense control in the second chapter, that one has to control the mind and mind can go here which way. But he didn't give the lust, which is like the big enemy that is controlling all these things. And now in the third chapter he says by gradually purifying, then you can overcome this lust. Because in the process of karma yoga, Krishna says that every activity has to be performed for Vishnu, otherwise it causes bondage. Because Arjuna's immediate question was, really? Then how are people doing all these sinful things? Who is responsible for that? And then Krishna says, no, it is there. It's the lust that is responsible. And that's how you should. Here, again, Krishna is not talking of surrender unto him. You haven't come to that stage. Use your mind to control your senses. Use your intelligence to control the mind. Because you are even higher than the intelligence. So that is the kind of gradation he's doing. But through Bhakti Yoga, you surrender to Krishna, he say, I'll take charge. Because mind is no, and when we talk, it seems easy, right? Mind control. When you come to 6th chapter, Arjuna says, really? Mind control? It's even better, tougher than controlling the raging wind. So it's not possible. So we can see how the practical difficulties emerge and how Krishna is answering them. To the point of surrendering to Krishna is the best way of overcoming all these hurdles. So thank you very much. Questions? Yes. Maybe my face is looking like a big pumpkin this close.
It hasn't come yet.
Okay, good.
So, question from Swapnil Prabhu, Bhagavad Gita 3.35. Distraction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. How do we apply this in day-to-day life? Quite often we see the failure in the application of this principle in day-to-day life, even in normal conversations. For instance, If someone has a more flamboyant style of speaking, one may try to imitate it and become miserable. Or say someone is an introvert and he artificially tries to become act like an extrovert. He becomes miserable in the process. How do we identify and avoid such instances of acting for someone else's nature?
So let's take the example of introvert and extrovert. It is one of the characteristics of material nature, but it is not per se what Krishna is referring to here. I'll give an example. If you are an introvert and you don't like to speak to others, then it's a problem everywhere. Because as a Kshatriya, you have to command, you have to talk, you have to discuss, and I just don't want to deal with that. It's more of a sign of fear that needs to be conquered rather than imitation. If you're a Brahmana, if you're an introvert and I don't want to teach, I can't deal with people. That's a whole other psychological problem that needs to be before you can come to do your prescribed duties. So, flamboyant speaking, again, Prabhu, those are a little more deeper than the prescribed duties that we are talking here. They're a little different. Maybe I'm understanding wrong, or if you can elaborate the question a little further. How do you mean by imitating an extrovert imitating introvert or vice versa? Sometimes you may have to, because if you are a person who's teaching and you are an introvert and I don't want to deal with people, then probably your prescribed duties are getting affected and maybe you need to become an extrovert and teach to others. So can you elaborate a little more, Srivasa Prabhu? I'll be back in like just a minute. I'll just use the restroom. I can get more questions. I'll just take. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you all the devotees for joining today. Sorry for the long class, but are there any other questions or comments?
There are one or two questions. Question from Harita. Saintly person's nature is forgiving and non-violent, and the Kshatriya nature is to fight and give punishment. Arjuna is both a saintly person and a Kshatriya. How these two natures go in the same person?
And that was what Arjuna's dilemma was to begin with. When he said that I will not fight, and he was acting as a saint, which he was, because he was an eternally liberated soul and he was an associate of Krishna. So he thought that it's better to forgive and not to kill so many people because of the sinful reactions that can accrue. And then Krishna said, "Oh Arjuna, you are actually not killing for your own sake, but I wanted this war, and I wanted the burden on the earth to be reduced when I incarnated, and you are doing it for my sake." So Arjuna was the topmost devotee of the Lord and Kshatriya at the same time by killing so many people on behalf of Krishna. So that's how he was fulfilling both. Because Krishna says in the 4th chapter, when we read next chapter, he says, Bhakto sime sakachiti. So he says that you are my friend. Because you are my friend and my devotee, I can tell you this secret. So there is no question of he being a saint because he was the devotee of the Lord and supreme devotee. But at the same time, Krishna wanted him to show that even if you are my devotee, it doesn't mean that you are a Kshatriya, you have to do my work on my behalf. So that way he's fulfilling both the conditions at the same time.
Next question from Ashok Prabhu, Ashok Rahula. Very enlightening class. Fortunate to be in the class, Prabhu. Question: is Dronacharya a Brahmana? If so, he fought and also taught warfare to Pandavas and Kauravas. How can we understand this, Prabhuji?
Dronacharya was a Brahmana, that is true. But his duty was to teach, and then in those days, the Vedas had both material and spiritual knowledge, and the Brahmanas were the only teachers. See, the beauty is that even though the Kshatriyas were trained and they received knowledge from the Brahmanas, they never became teachers themselves. Even though the father was a king and he was perfectly trained in weapons, he used to send his son to a Gurukul, to a Brahmana school. Now he will never again, homeschooling. I'll teach, I'll teach you at home how to fight with weapons. He never did that. So, because the Brahmanas were meant to teach, and so they taught both. They had the practical knowledge, and at the same time they had the theoretical knowledge. They taught, and so that's how Dronacharya was both. Is that okay, Ashok Prabhu? Achyuta Kumar Prabhu, sorry.
Swapnil Prabhu is adding clarification on this question. Sure, Prabhu. What I basically meant is sometimes one may try to artificially imitate someone else's nature in conversational styles. That's how, for instance, most teenagers in today's time pick up certain styles of speaking, like using bad words or talking to a flirtatious style of speaking. In some subtle ways, even adults may tend to copy someone else in their ways. So, how can we be conscious of this verse? That is to try to satisfy it and whatever psychophysical nature Krishna has given and apply it in every step of life, keeping Krishna as the ultimate goal.
But there are two ways of looking at it. The one thing is you imitate someone you want to be like them. In other words, the root cause of that particular activity is a subtle envy. At least in the material perspective. In the spiritual perspective is different. So if one is not envious of the other person and a subtle envy, then you won't be like that person. Because a person is very famous and rich, so maybe you want to dress like that person. And then he will go to a very fashion store, or what's that word? Designer clothes. Yeah, designer clothes. The famous fashion person, and he buys the shirt for like $700 for one shirt. And then I don't have 700, but I want to be looking like him. So you go to like Ross Dress for Less and try to get the same shirt for like $7 or $8 and try to buy it. So the act which you mentioned, there was a subtle envy there. I want to be like that person. We had this interesting, we are reading the 7th canto of Bhagavatam. And Hiranyakashipu, he worships Lord Brahma. He worships Lord Brahma for the exclusive purpose of becoming Brahma. There is no other motive. It's just the envy, the desire to control and dominate, and that envy that some person is already in that position, I have to be like that. So that is a very subtle way. Then I have to imitate that. I can't be like that person, I try to imitate and feel good about myself. So that is one aspect that one can be careful of. The other thing is, to the extent that you meet people or be with the people, then you act and speak like them. So it's better, you can choose your own association. So there are two ways of looking at that. Does that help, Srivasa Prabhu? Actually, I should have sat there, right? Looking at that would be easier. Next time. Any other questions?
Natwar Prabhuji is asking, can you please summarize quickly chapter 3?
The chapter 3 started off with Arjuna's question. Do you want me to fight or should I not fight? Because you are telling me both. By your shlokas in chapter 2, you said at some stages I should fight, at some stages it's better become intelligent and not fight. And then Krishna actually starts off with the thing saying that, Arjuna, there are two ways of realizing yourself. I talked about self in the second chapter. There are two ways. One is through empirical philosophical speculation, other is through work. And he said it is better to work in devotion rather than trying to give up work. By thinking that by giving up work I can become perfect, that's not true. And he says that everybody helplessly acts according to the modes that they have acquired in this particular world. And then he says, even if you want to be happy in this world, then there is a particular cycle I have set. I have created the demigods. Then the demigods will give you everything you need. And then you have to help the demigods by doing the sacrifice. So it's a mutual cooperation there. If you don't do that, then you are just living a life of sin. And then he says, but those who are self-realized, they don't have to work. They have no prescribed duties. And he gives a little bit hint about himself. He opens up. Because Krishna's nature actually is so slowly opening up in Bhagavad Gita. He never says, hey, I'm God, start, come on, come on. No, he is like slowly open. He says, look, I have no prescribed duties, but I still work in this world. And then it goes on and on about how the nature, how one's nature is impelling one to work. And later, he says that you work for Krishna or Vishnu, otherwise you'll be bound. And he says that if you follow my instructions faithfully, then you are free from the reactions of work, otherwise you are bound in this material world. In the last section, Arjuna asks, like, so if what is causing a person to perform sinful activities? And Krishna goes at length about how lust, which is born of mode of passion, that's how it is doing all these things. So, and towards the end, Krishna says that there is mind, there is senses, there is gross body or gross matter, about his senses, about his mind, about his intelligence, about his soul, and how through knowing this gradation, then you should be able to control this thing called lust or overcoming. So that's where we end. And then we know the next, just to give a flavor of next chapter, is Jnana Yoga, which means how one can practically come to the knowledge of being realized that you are not this body. So that's what is being discussed in the next. Is that okay, Nakar?
Last question.
Yes.
So, Rita Mataji is asking. So, chapter 3 is Karma Yoga. Chapter 5 is also Karma Yoga. What is the difference between these two chapters?
I'll give it a nutshell and we'll discuss when we come to chapter 5. Chapter 3 is action without knowledge. In fact, in verses, Krishna says that a wise man doesn't disrupt an ignorant person, that when they are working, so on and so forth. Chapter 5 is a place where actually you come and you work with knowledge. And you are at a stage where you are giving up work based on your knowledge. So that is the difference, work with knowledge and work without knowledge. So here, I don't have knowledge. Right now, Jnana Yoga is the connecting thing between the chapter 3 and chapter 5. Chapter 3 is Karma Yoga, chapter 4 is Jnana Yoga, chapter 5 is Karma Sannyas Yoga. So the linking is the knowledge. So that knowledge will be what will be discussed in the next chapter. Okay? And then only in Jnana Yoga in the 6th chapter, Krishna says you go to forest. Not that you take Bhagavad Gita and you read it first verse and run to a forest. It's not easy. Does that answer your question, Harita Math?
Last minute question. So, one from Kushal Prabhuji. If the living entity is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations, how do we come in contact with the material nature?
Can you So, usually for your benefit, I can such a question. Usually you ask me questions like this, but I haven't asked the same questions. Oh, like that. Wait. Okay. Let's tweak it. That's okay with you. So here, Kushalji, you can see this. The pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, time, situations, or dreams, or other causes. How then he becomes engaged in these things? And then, so if you can see, a lot of these questions are asked here, and and Maitreya answers all these particular questions. So please take your time and you can go through these, and then it will be nice. The exact same question was asked by Viratu Maitreya. So you can take a look at it, Prabhuji, and you'll get the answers here. Is that okay, Vishalji? All right. Next question.
Next question from Sadhana Mataji. Can you please go over the book distribution activity in light of not disrupting ignorant common man taught in this chapter?
Thank you. The yoga process is interdependent. For example, if you cannot attain perfection in Jnana Yoga unless you have attained perfection in Karma Yoga. You cannot attain perfection in Dhyana unless you have attained perfection in Dhyana. So yoga process is interdependent, which means that Krishna is saying that if a person has not achieved perfection in Karma Yoga, he cannot progress to Jnana, so don't disturb him. Don't make sure that actually that perfect person is completing his requisite purification or requisite work that is needed. But Bhakti Yoga is independent. Independent of karma, independent of jnana, independent of dhyana. So when you are engaging the person in reading Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, going distributing Srimad Bhagavatam, you are engaging them in the process of bhakti, which is not dependent on other processes, and thus there is no harm in introducing that person to devotional service. But if you are doing it from the yoga ladder perspective, then you should not break it. So that's what is Krishna's intention. Does that answer your question? Besides, the nature is so strong, the person will continue doing whatever. It's not that they receive Bhagavatam and then they just drop everything else. So, hopefully they should. That's it. Thank you very much for your patient listening. I know we just went over time. Please forgive me for any offenses. And I am in the office, so I didn't put on dhoti or tilak, because if people drop in, then they might think that I'm doing something weird using the office thing. So I'm hoping that next class we will have it in the temple, and we'll notify of the next class. So my request is that everybody read 15 minutes a day from now before the exam. So make it a schedule, make it a point, get some time out somewhere, wherever you can. 15 minutes is not very hard. So I'm not looking for any excuses from anyone. Only thing I am looking is saying that yes, I am actually doing my quota of reading every day, and Krishna is pleased by your reading of his words, and Prabhupada is pleased by you reading his books, and you are so happy and satisfied internally. So that's my humble request. Thank you very, very much. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha vipasindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. And Vijay, thank you so very much for organizing this. This was truly a wonderful experience. People didn't have calls dropping and so on and so forth. And so they had to tolerate my face for 3 hours, but I think that was a small price they had to pay for this. So thank you very much, Hare Krishna.